Okay, this is a short video of a exhaust system repair on a 97 Corolla. My inspection was due in October, now it's November, and I noticed I had a leak in my exhaust. So what happened was my catalytic converter, which is right here, the flange at the front of it, it just separated. So it was a quite loud exhaust leak by the time I went to check it. Now, this wasn't even the first catalytic converter on this car. This was the first catalytic converter. I didn't throw it away because I heard that you could recycle these because of the precious metal. Okay, this one I put in about 5 years ago. Even at that time, this car doesn't require emissions inspection. And just a few details here. You notice that it comes with this heat shield. I think the heat shield, this is a very symmetrical device, so it actually can go in front to back, upside down. You can put it in 4 different ways. These particular models, there's no flow direction. There's no arrow indicated, for example, on these units. And when you look at them, they're the same, one end to the other. It's the same. So this one I just happen to remember, it was in this way. The heat shields go to the up to protect the car. It's just an extra layer. It protects the car. You don't want the car to be exposed to all that heat. I'm wondering on this one if I put it upside down, because I noticed it's been banged here on something, so I can't remember actually, but this should be the upside. Okay, now let me show you. First of all, getting it out, I did have a slight problem getting it out. One of the big bolts that I was using up here, I had to cut it with a hacksaw. I said I had to cut it with a hacksaw, but the reality was I just wasn't having any luck getting that, even with all the heat and the liquid wrench and the breaker bar underneath the car. I wasn't able to get this. I thought I would be able to, but one problem on this one is that you need to grip both ends of this, because if you only grip one, the whole thing turns, so you have to use both hands that way, and it's harder to apply enough force. And for whatever reason, I got frustrated and I just cut it off. Now, here's the new cut. Here, I'll show you. Okay, I put the heat shield to the front. Okay, here's the front. Here's where I put in bolts. Okay, these are not the original bolts, but I just got the biggest bolt that I could fit through the hole in this hardware. This is the original one, and that's the new one that I had to put in. These bolts are 1/2 inch, and one mistake I made when I put this in, I didn't check, and the hole in that flange was just slightly less than 1/2 inch. So I had to drill that out at 1/2 inch before I could put these in. I didn't realize that until I actually had it in position in the car, and then I had to take it out and drill the hole. Okay. I was able to reuse one of those, but I had to buy a new bolt. Now, here's the other end of that. The other end of that, you'll notice that the original flange on this pipe, now this pipe is good, it doesn't have a problem, so I'm reusing it, but the flange on it has since fallen off. And what I have fashioned here is just these large washers, which are big enough to catch the remaining piece of the flange. And I've done that on both sides, and it worked last time, and I'm just reusing it exactly as is, hoping that's going to work. And actually, I've already tested it, so I noticed, for example, that this is okay. It's holding it tight enough. Now you can notice here, I've got gaskets in there, and I've also applied this RTV. It's the copper high temp RTV, and I use it on both ends. This end you can't see it as much because that's internal, okay, but I've basically smothered the gaskets with that stuff, okay? Because it really does help it to leak, and all these help it to prevent leaks. And on an old flange like this, it is difficult sometimes to get a good seal. And so that helps you. You need to get a good seal to pass your inspection. Now, the type of gaskets that are in there are actually this type of gasket. It's the kind that doesn't fit over the entire flange. It just fits in right over the round part. And on these particular new one, there's also a little indentation for it to slip into. Okay, and I didn't reuse this gasket because I didn't need to. The new unit came with a couple gaskets. This was one of the gaskets it came with, but on this one, what I actually did was I actually cut out the little donut. I cut out the inner part of it because that would fit in as a replacement for this type of a gasket. The whole thing wouldn't have worked just because of the way the flange was set up. So you have to look at the flange to see what's going to produce the best seal. In this case, I was able to use the exhaust gasket material, but I just cut it to the shape that would give me a better fit, and then I covered it over with that sealant. Now, here's that sealant here. I still might have a little bit left. I've been using it for various projects on the exhaust. I found that it works pretty good. So in a previous case, for example, believe it or not, I had an exhaust leak up on the exhaust manifold, and it was leaking right here. And what I was able to do is, aside from tightening up the exhaust manifold bolts, which I did after removing this heat shield, I was able to clean, and then I simply worked in this RTV all around the area where it was leaking. And then after it had dried, what I find is it wasn't leaking there anymore, and that got me through a inspection cycle, and it's actually still good. It's still holding, so I'm very big on the RTV there. Now the other thing I wanted to show you is after you get everything back together, you want to test it. When they test for back pressure in the inspection, the inspector is going to check for the noise. That's the first thing. He's got a sensitive ear. But then he's also going to put his hand over the exhaust to test for back pressure. Now you want to test this before you go in, because if there's any place where it's failing, you want to basically patch that. So here's the way this setup works. You take a shop vac, the kind that will blow also. So on this shop vac, this is the intake, and it blows the air out here. If you put the hose on the back, this actually blows air. So some shop vacs won't do this, but some of them do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually force air into, I've sealed that with some metal tape. It has to have a good adhesive because it has to hold up under this pressure, and you can't have any of it leaking at that point, okay? So I have some metal tape that does seal this really good. Other tapes don't work so good. Okay, then you take a spray bottle with soap and water, and you spray it on all of the joints, right all the way from the back to the front. Any suspicious area where you think there could be a problem, you spray it with that. Okay, I'll show you an area here where I found something. So I'm going to turn on. Okay, see that joint right there? Spray it. Then you check for any bubbles. And what you'll notice is there is a leak at that point. That is not a major leak. That is a small leak. That might be okay. That might get passed. I'll just have to check. But if I notice any lack of back pressure, I might try to perform a repair at that location just to get by the inspection. Okay. Now, just to show you how this works up here, for example, I spray that same solution up here just to see if there's any bubbles, and there's no bubbles. Now you can use this spray, you can go all the way from the front of the car to the back of the car. checking all of the gaskets on the exhaust. I've even caught leaks in the past on the braided cable. You cover it over and you can see any bubbles that might form at any of the suspicious spots. This pipe happens to be relatively new, so it's not showing any leaks. And the test at the cat shows that it's intact. So this one is ready to fire up. Yeah, it passed the leak test. So another thing I wanted to show you was I did replace the hangers here with because these hangers had long since failed. I use now the coat hanger wire because I want to support this properly. When it's not supported properly, of course, you can easily damage the exhaust components if they bang around on various things, especially if they were to hit the ground, for example. I didn't have that problem. I had previously tried zip ties at this location, and what I found was they didn't hold very good. Eventually, they'd fail. And this one still has one original rubber support at that point. And that's all, that has never failed me. So that even when other ones have failed, that has kept the entire system up off the ground. Okay, and I have used this coat hanger wire also on another spot where there's another attachment up in front of the cat. It's the attachment for the so-called front pipe. There's a rubber mount there, and there's an attachment point to give some support. And I couldn't get a bolt. I couldn't get that to align properly when I got the new pipe. The new pipe wasn't precisely aligned. I couldn't get a bolt to go through that to attach it to that support. So I just used the wire, and this will just give it a little extra support if something else were to fail and it were to hang down. So I feel as though this unit is now supported pretty well at all the original points, and that might help preserve it. Okay, so that's just a brief review of some exhaust component. The new cat cost me about $100. I honestly would have gotten a straight through pipe if I knew where to buy one, because I don't need to pass the emissions on this unit. It's so old. But at $100, hopefully this will get Black Beauty back on the road. Thanks.